version none, as we say.
Yeah.
Well, that's great.
How are you been?
I'm really good. How about you?
Great. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you great. Can you hear
Yes.
me?
Yes.
Good.
Sound good.
Yay. Where in the world are you living these days?
So right now I'm back in Dalton, Georgia,
Oh, okay.
where I grew up for high school and middle school, and just took some time off from work, kind of put things back together. During that
Mm.
time, I started this, and the whiteboard is out of whack because I didn't want to put any more holes in the wall. But I figure at this point, maybe just for common courtesy to the next person, it might be okay to just like straighten it out. But
I see.
I
Yeah.
wanted it there just to capture the light because a
Oh,
friend of mine suggested it, Theo, that I did the first few recordings with. And I was like, hey, if this works now, this is just like my laptop computer here.
mm-hmm.
And I think I just got this one a month ago before the other one died. And just making it work with what I got.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very good. Very good. Well, good. I'm glad to hear that.
Thank you.
Congratulations on your podcast.
Thank you. I took some tips from you and your website. I went on there looking at what you had on your website for like
Thanks.
tools and things. So
Yeah.
I was looking for the one mobile mic, but I got this so far. It's a
Okay.
Fee-Fine, but it's a USB plug-in mic, and it seems to work pretty well compared to when I just had the audio off of the old computer before.
Oh, yeah. No.
Yep.
Even I'm using the earbuds that have a mic just for that very purpose.
Yep.
Very good. Well, thanks. I feel really flattered that you would check that out.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I was always like whenever we weren't able to connect earlier, I just recorded a little short because
mm-hmm.
Something I'm getting from the people that I follow and the groups that I come in is that like regardless of what happens, I guess some people say the show must go on or kind of respect what you do. So it's like even if you have technical difficulties, still record something. And just doing this and getting on camera, I was reminded that I learned it from you through Toastmasters because I gave my first speech and I was just like petrified, but I kept seeing you over and over again. You just get out there and you kill it.
Oh,
and I was like, man, you're great. And then you're like, it took me 6 months to get here. I was terrible.
Yeah.
You're like,
that's funny. Yeah. It's funny you should say that. I just had a meeting where I was in a leadership role at the Toastmasters meeting, and I said, hey, just a reminder for everybody. Oh, we had a guest who got up and spoke right away, and we were like, congratulations to this person who took the risk and went out and spoke. And I said, I just I always like to remind people it took me 6 months to get to the point where I could speak for a minute uninterrupted. And everybody's like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. And I said, yeah, this is the after.
Right.
What you're seeing right now, I've already put in the Toastmasters time.
Right. That's awesome. Are you? So you're still with Toastmasters?
Yeah. It's funny. A lot of people think of Toastmasters as you go through and you get to some point and then you're done. And for some people, that's totally true. You can work the educational program, you can achieve some new skills, and then that can be the end of it. But then for me, I really can tell if I miss a couple of weeks, I start to get rusty. And I was thinking about it. I think that for me now, Toastmasters it's a creative outlet for me. It's a social outlet for me. It's a networking outlet for me. So it's really part of my professional development. So I enjoy continuing on with Toastmasters.
That's awesome. I kind of struggled with it a little bit, but I was sad when I left Louisiana because I was like, when I went up north, I was able to find a chapter at the within our company.
Yeah.
And
good.
What I didn't understand initially, even being in Louisiana, was how you're supposed to use the two manuals. And like the whole time when I was listening or giving feedback, I didn't know that you're supposed to be filling it out. So like still to this day, I just need like one more speech. Because what I did was that I gave the icebreaker and I gave the next speech, and it started to get motivational, and that just scared me because like I was following a motivational speaker and I was like, I'm not him. I feel like an imposter. And then I remember talking with Albert Pellichet. He's the president at the time, and he was saying that he like encouraged me to go on, but it's like that imposter syndrome and that fear, just like, it just felt like it was gripping. So I was like, no, I just want to fall back. And like, I don't want to practice anymore. And then like work started to take over, and it just seemed like it's one thing after another, after another. But then once I moved up north, I started back at the start because I thought that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to do another icebreaker, but it's like, you can do an icebreaker, but you can still do the next thing. And I didn't, I didn't figure that out until maybe 2 years later, once I got to Augusta, and I was like, oh.
Yeah, so you could have had a little bit more. You're just a little bit behind, but
right. But I mean, I've got all my speeches in there recorded. Oh, great. And then when I think about it, I was like, I just need to go dig it up over there in the box and find a local chapter before I leave here and ship out to wherever I've got to go next.
Perfect. But
yeah, I'm gonna find a way to do that this week and complete it, just to be like, I'm done. Like, I'm not taking this into 2020. I'm just gonna say.
Even though you're not saying it, I'm going to give myself a gold star that our conversation right now is pushing you to go and get back onto the Toastmasters.
Yeah.
That's great. That's cool. Is it nice being back in Georgia?
It is. It's it was the biggest thing I noticed was having the elevation, having mountains, and remembering what those are. Because I've been back since 2015. I came back September 2015, and then I've been in East Georgia for the longest time. I just made it back this way in June, early July.
Perfect. Okay. Yeah. Very good. Oh, I love on Instagram, you're really following up on a lot of entrepreneurial thinkers, and even when we started talking today, you're following some mentors to you. So tell me a little bit about that. What's happening with your entrepreneurial life?
So I mean, with that, it was never my intention to become an entrepreneur, but I definitely see the benefit of it, and I'm embracing it because of like the value that it brings. Because when I started work in 2014, coming out of college, or even leading up to that, like in 2013, somebody introduced me to like motivation, like motivational videos, because he was saying that that's what got him through the hard times, because the job we were working were technicians, where you basically go to power plants and paper mills and you do this like non-destructive work, and all the while you're going to a top engineering school in the middle of Atlanta, but you get treated like dog crap on the weekend or whenever you're working with the guys. And I mean, we kind of did it out of good spirit to be like, okay, this is our chance to do a co-op. Some like the only difference between the co-op and the internship is that you do it with the same company for 3 semesters versus you intern somewhere and then you go somewhere else.
Right.
But yeah, just doing that, and then having the exposure to motivation and kind of seeing somebody, Eric Thomas, E.T. the hip hop preacher, like seeing him and his drive and his intention on being like entrepreneurial, which is basically like self-motivating and like not needing somebody else to like get you going, having to prod you, like that kind of pushed me into the realm of like this entrepreneurial family where everybody's creating something. And just to get to the point of here, it was like, okay, I can be around, take notes, talk about, oh, maybe I want to do this goal, maybe I don't. And there's just too much like putting my toe in and out of the water. But like every single time you get around, you see people they're doing stuff and you're not. And initially I had like the comparison factor where I was comparing myself to them, but the more and more I kept looking at it, like the people that would encourage me, they would say, hey, like, you don't need to do what I'm doing at the pace I'm doing it. You just need to do what works best for you. And the idea basically came last year as I kind of remembered that I really enjoyed listening to podcasts, or I think it started with like watching movie reviews and people just have like this long dialogue. They'll have jokes in there and different things. And I was like, that's really cool. And I just kept watching and I just kept watching.
Down the rabbit hole.
Down
the rabbit hole.
And then finally this year I ran into the Joe Rogan podcast and he was interviewing Jordan Peterson, who's a psychologist out of Canada, where he had some incidents happen with people in the news and like that whole scandal. And like the more he kept talking, I was like I'm trying to watch this to be procrastinate intentionally.
But now
he keeps pushing me back. Like the more I listen to him, he's like pushing me back in the direction to be like, you need to get your life in order. And then like I ended up grabbing his book, and like I'm reading it. I probably listened to like 9 or 12 hours of his podcast with Joe, because they run 2.5 hours, 3 hours. And it's like the conversation is that interesting that you want to know more. And then finally, I think it was like August. Usually I try to go to 1 or 2 of these conferences during the year. And a friend of mine had just kind of encouraged me, because I was going through a big depression bout over the last few years, but it got really bad at the start of this year. And I wasn't dealing with it like I needed to. And just to kind of like check in regularly, like, hey, what's going on? Like, my friend asked me, are you still going to be part of this group? Like, are you still active? Like, do you want to go forward, or do you not want to go forward with it? Just to like ask the question. And as I thought of it in my clear mind, I was like, yeah, of course I want to go. I want to go to another conference. I want to be around like-minded people. I want to grow. And it's like, okay, what's stopping you? And I was like, I don't know. And she's like, well, go ahead and book a flight, like pick an event, go to the page, pick an event on the calendar, get your ticket and pick your flight and just go. And I was like, all right, fine. So then I did that in August, and they kind of went through, you have different speakers come up, and then Eric Thomas, he came up and did a part where he starts a lot of his speeches kind of saying like, write down your goals, like write down what you want to do, like what you need to do, and put a date on it. So I was like, I need to start a business, or I need to start something business-like by the end of October 2019. And I was like, I don't know exactly what it's going to be, but I need to create something, because I'm not currently working, but I know I need a job to have income coming in, but it's not like I did enough to save and to invest beforehand to where it's not an issue. But I was like, I never want to be in a position where everybody's making me feel like because I'm not working, I'm going to be broke. And I was like, I never want that hanging over my head. And since then, I went back, didn't do anything with it for a week or 2. Luckily, talked to a friend of mine, Theo Brown. He's like known as a smiling barber. He works out of Savannah. We just met last year. And we just had a conversation about what barbering's been like for him, how he got started, what his experience was over the last year. And I was like, oh crap, do you mind if I record this after 45 minutes?
Yeah.
And he's like, sure, let's get on. And I was like, how do I even do this? I was like, well, we've been using the Zoom app for a lot of the webinars. So let me try to do that. So I'm sitting there like trying to figure it out. And then that's essentially what the first podcast was. Like I recorded it then, like try to bury that almost, because as I started to watch it back, I remembered what I sounded like and what I looked like. And then that bothered me for the better part of the month. But then once I finally got over that one night and just watched it all the way through, I was like, yeah, well, it's not the best. Like try to edit it, but eventually either the editing worked out where I was able to cut out a few crutch words, but I was like, hey, I haven't been doing Toastmasters for almost 2 years now, so it's rusty, but perfection wasn't the goal. The goal was getting started. And then that's what I called it. I went ahead and started setting a schedule, reaching out to friends to say, hey, would you like to be on the podcast? Just talking with about yourself, like talking with everyday people that I've met in my life that are valuable to me. And just want to kind of give you a platform to talk about you. And a lot of people responded back, and I just like basically made a schedule to where it's like, okay, maybe I'll do 3 to 4 interviews in a week, and then just plan to launch it October 1st, since that's the first of the month, and then just do it every Tuesday since that's when the first fell. And I was like, let me just do 5 p.m. and just kind of went from there, figured out how to host it, where to post it, tried one platform, had some technical difficulties, wound up on Anchor. That worked out. Did the website through GoDaddy after a few of the guys told me, hey, go ahead and get the domain name. And I was like, okay.
Okay, yeah.
Like they walked me through. I was like, how do you do that? It's like, just go there, type it in. If it's available, cool. If it's not, try to put podcast behind it. And even how I got,
there you go.
even how I got the name was from reaching out to somebody within our community and just asking them, hey, I know my voice, I have trouble being monotone. And like, is that like, I'm looking for a voice coach. Can anybody help me with that? And a rapper out of LA or I don't know if he's in LA, but he's over in the West Coast in California. He reached out to me and he's like, hey, I'm not a voice coach, but I think what I do in my industry, I could help you out. And I was like, okay. So we just talked for a second and he was just like, all right, I need you to say, it's my time. And I was like, okay, it's my time. He's like, say it again. I was like, it's my time. He's like, say it again. It's my time. And I was excited. And he's like, you see that energy that you created? He's like, take that and just use that in everything that you do. And then
Good. Yeah. And it's coming, right?
Yeah. And I mean, from there, I signed up for a speakers battle, which I don't consider myself a speaker, but I was like, hey, they're having like the top people in this league that want to become like Eric Thomas, and they're just speaking. You get a topic and you're going to speak on it. I signed up last minute, didn't think I was going to get in, got in. I see the person that I'm going up against already talking with somebody about the next round. And I was like, oh man, I feel kind of disrespected. Like, you're not even going to consider me or anything. So I like go downstairs. The topic is on excuses. And I'm sitting here like, okay, how do you format this? I start thinking about it. I'm like, okay, so stop thinking about it, just record. So I record it, like lose my place. I write some notes down, start reading the notes. And like, after a while, I started seeing stars, sweating. I'm like, okay, just stop, go away from it, maybe come back and try to record again. But like, I guess I just kind of lost it, but I found something that was like 2 to 3 minutes and submitted it. I was like, it's not the best, but it's done. And like, I did what I said I was going to do. And then from there, went online, started looking up vocal exercises, asked somebody else. They sent me different videos. So it's just like trying one thing after another and just like tweaking my morning routine. And just, that's how I got here.
Oh, wow. That's great. I like, when I started, this is kind of my philosophy of the version 1 is better than version none. I really do believe that, but there's a lot of that, but also I love how you're setting a goal and then it's like the path kind of reveals itself. So it's like, as long as you're just taking the next step, you're still making forward progress. So you signed up for, you took the risk of signing up for the speech. Just everything, the steps start falling in place once you set your goal. I think that's really good. Yeah, that's really great. Yeah.
So I guess maybe I should flip it around and actually interview you.
Oh, well, no, I was doing a good job finding out about you.
Right. That's true. Yeah. It's been a minute because what is it, since 2014 that I saw you last? That's when we first met, I think.
Yeah.
Maybe 2015.
You were in Louisiana and we met at Toastmasters.
Yeah.
Very good.
Awesome times.
Well, I'm encouraged that with the idea of you getting back to Toastmasters. I think that that's what I was going to say. You have your own style. That's the other thing too. I'm thinking too with what you're seeing with the entrepreneurial groups and with your own speaking is that you have your own style.
Right.
So you don't not everybody doesn't have to be Gary Vaynerchuk. Everybody doesn't have to be, Eric the hip hop preacher. Everybody can have their own path to entrepreneurial success, to speaking success, to podcasting success, is that you really can make it your own. And there's room for a lot of different styles. And I think that's an important thing for people to remember, especially in these types of pursuits that we're talking about.
Yeah. And I think that's kind of what I gained from leaving Toastmasters, or at least being able to step away from a little bit, because I know one thing I appreciated about it was the structure, but
Yeah.
I quickly found myself falling too much into the structure to where even when I observed other people, I noticed that like they focus so much on the structure that they lost
They
themselves.
lost some of the spirit necessarily. Yeah.
Right.
I think that when Toastmasters works well, I kind of joke with some people, just between you and I, I joke with people that sometimes there can be a little too much Toastmasters where you start to, there's a little bit of a uniformity and maybe some people start talking like this, you know, the radio, the
right.
sort of a joke radio voice instead of really using it as a creative expression for themselves.
Right.
So,
and using your natural voice.
Using your natural voice and enjoying your natural voice.
Right.
I think it's just a little hurdle for everybody, whether it's your own picture or your own video or your own voice. Everybody has that feeling of like, not being sort of satisfied. But I think that humans are that's part of our wiring, is we're perpetually a little bit dissatisfied. So you just have to ignore that and hit publish and get it out there, and you can modify from there.
Gotcha. So what led you to get into podcasting?
Well, Asher, I'm so glad you asked. Well, I was and still am a heavy consumer of podcasts. So similar to you, I've gone down the podcasting rabbit hole, and I've always loved audio. So even when I was younger, I loved listening to the radio, talk radio, if you can believe that, even from a young age.
Like the NPR stories?
Yeah, and there really is.
The Odyssey stories, that's what they were for me.
The Odyssey stories?
Yeah.
I don't know about that. But yeah, NPR is a great one because they understand storytelling. And to me, there really is something different about audio. There really is something different about literally being in somebody's head when you're speaking. I enjoy hearing people's honest conversations. So podcasting was sort of a natural for me.
Yeah.
And when I moved to Louisiana, I really wanted to make a break from the work that I had been doing previously. And so I used my move to Louisiana from the West Coast to really let go of what I had been doing previously and try and make a go of it. But podcasting, I just really wanted in on that and that industry. I could see podcasting was starting to really kind of come up, and I enjoyed it so much that I thought, okay, well, how can I get in it? So when I moved to Louisiana, it was kind of a surprise that we moved to Louisiana. It was a very quick move, and frankly, Louisiana wasn't on my map previously or on my radar. And when we got here, one of the ways that I tried to start connecting with people and make a network for myself here was Toastmasters. I continued being a Toastmaster. I connect with a club right away just to start meeting people and start having something to do. And then I also started volunteering at a dog rescue group. So I'm interested in dogs, and I thought this would be a great way for me to be volunteering in the community, and that would be another way to meet people.
Right.
And I approached the executive director and I said, hey, can I do a podcast for the organization? And thank goodness her son-in-law did a Saints football podcast. So she knew what a podcast was. A lot of people still don't know what a podcast is.
Right.
She said, hey, if you pay for it, knock yourself out, Catherine. So I said, great. So I did a podcast for them for over 250 episodes.
Oh, nice.
And it was great because I was doing it as a volunteer, but it turned out to be a very good move for me because it allowed me to make all my mistakes. I wasn't getting paid to do it. It was sort of like a beta test. I could do it. I could learn how to do it, get over the podcasting learning curve, kind of figure out what a show really is all about, and do it for an organization that I cared about. And then from that, I was actually able to get paying clients. So that's really been my podcasting journey.
Nice.
It was always good because even now I can say I had, I have all that experience, even again, it was a volunteer, but it was experience that I can absolutely use for my professional life as well.
Nice. And I guess, how are you able to get the paid clients? Are they like you're podcasting for them, or you're producing their podcast? Yeah.
So what I try and do, I'm walking here now. We're walking and talking. Yeah. We're doing it. Speaking of dogs, my associate producer here, she needs to go outside.
Gotcha.
My business is really based on I bill myself as a content marketer. So I'm helping people do their podcasts, but it's not like that people just record the audio and give it to me and then I take it from there. Is that I'm really trying to help businesses take their stories, take the message that they want to get out there through a podcast, help them develop that. Then we do the audio and actually release it as a show. So I am an end-to-end podcast producer. So I try and help people with the conception of the idea all the way through the actual published episodes.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's really cool. It's funny because I guess I just started this and I was like, you thought about it for a year, you didn't do anything, and now the year's getting ready to be over. So you need to just jump online and record. And once doing that, I was able to kind of reach out for help and kind of say like, okay, I got the quick jump start to do like 5, 10, 20, like right up front. And I was like, oh, like now I've got enough content for the rest of the year, so I don't have to sweat that. But now I need to edit it, or I need to actually put it in a format to where I can go from video to audio and just put it to where people can actually see it. And finally I had somebody was able to reach out and help me, and I think he's helped me from like the last 2 episodes. So like from the start of November onward, he's been helping me with the editing and just kind of seeing like what he does with the introduction, and like he does voiceover work and editing and things of that sort. And I was like, wow, like I almost felt like I'm not worthy for like the introduction you just gave me, and just like, okay, you put it up here, and then all of a sudden it's like, I'm like, I got to step it up, but like what you're marrying it with, I'm not sure if that quite goes. But I was like, hey, just let it go, just let it ride. Like
inspiration. He's bringing you, he's upping your game, and so now you're inspired to step it up to that level. I think that's good. I think that's really good. Very good.
And just from that, it's like just from that getting in motion and getting started, like I'd heard of it before through masterminds, webinars and things, and it's like it really doesn't do anything for you until you do something with the information. And just being able to relocate, get in a different place, a different state of mind, like it all really helped. I guess I don't know if I was making a point there, but I'm just happy that I'm happy right now. And
me too. Like, I'm really happy.
And it's like, I know before I wasn't here, and I know that it doesn't take too much to like go off track, but at least doing everything I can to put like blocks in place, or put like a set routine, like every morning get up, make the bed, meditate, like get out of the house to go, just like go for a walk or go for a run. And just reminding myself that that's what I enjoy, and not worrying about what somebody else wants to do or doesn't want to do. That's been a huge help.
Yeah. It's interesting. I've thought about a lot about this idea is there is a downside to success. And I'm just speaking sort of like generally, like the way we are able to live our lives today, we enjoy a lot of comforts. And it's funny because you think all of humankind has been moving to the point where we can enjoy, I can turn on any faucet in my house has clean water. I can go to the grocery store. We have food all the time. And it's like, this is a miracle on one hand, but on the other side of it is like, when it is, I want to carefully choose, right? When life is easy, when some of these things of our life are easy, life is not easy, but when some of these things are very accessible, it's like we can get into a comfort zone that is not very helpful for us. It's the mental health part of us.
Right.
We do need to work hard, and we do need to be busy, and it's not, in my opinion, it's not healthy. And maybe I'll speak for myself. That's best. It's not the best thing for me not to have anything to do, or just always have leisure time, or always have the easy path, because that's not the road to me being the most successful person that I can be.
Yeah.
It's kind of interesting because I feel like we're working towards that goal. That's actually not the most productive goal.
Right. But
Did that work?
yes,
Did
it
I
does
land
work.
that at all?
It works perfectly because you just reminded me of the first book I ever read, like coming out of college. And I was listening to it this morning while running. And I'm just grateful for it because it's called Who Moved My Cheese?
Yeah.
And have you read
That's
it?
like a requirement for
Right.
every college graduate. Either you've received it as a gift. Yeah, you have to read it.
Right. But I mean, it's like I got that book from watching one of Eric Thomas's video. He's talking about the crossover. And like initially I was going to cut it off because I was like, oh man, I've been excited. I'm watching this guy. He's motivating me. He's pumping me up. He's giving me a good word. And then he talks about reading. I was like, ugh. But then what he followed it up with was a specific list of reads and what they would be good for. He said, like, read this book because it's good for your mind. Read this one because it's good for your body, like your spirit, like your soul. And read this because it's good for your finances. It'll teach you about money. And I was like, I can do that. Like, that's something very specific. And when I read this book or listened to it, and then I looked it up online, I saw that it's like the shortest book I've ever seen. And just the interesting, the interesting title, I was like, okay. And it has like the introduction, the story, which is maybe like 30 minutes, 40 minutes, if that. And then it has a discussion afterwards. And then with the book, the unabridged book, it has an interview from the author and where he's talking about how it took him like 15 years to live the book before he was able to write it. And then once he wrote it, like putting it out and actually explaining it from his viewpoint to where like the things that he valued, where he talks about what would you do if you weren't afraid, but then having to really take some feedback that other people gave him and say, okay, like fear isn't always a bad thing. Like you shouldn't necessarily avoid it altogether. Like a little bit of fear kind of keeps you on your toes. It keeps you on the edge. And at the same time, like too much fear might paralyze you or cripple you. And like they say with the cheese story, it's like everything's always going to change. So you never want to get comfortable. And like the minute you start to get comfortable, like I start looking around for myself and I'm looking and I'm like, okay, how many clothes do I have? Or like, why do I have that? Or why do I have this? Like, that's for me personally. Like, I didn't grow up with a lot, so I don't keep a lot. But sometimes I get around different people and they're like, oh, you need this or you need that. Like, look better a little bit. I was like, okay, I can do maybe one or two, but I'm not about to go crazy on it because that's not necessarily something I value. But I've got to be careful not to put that on somebody else to say like, oh, why are you all this or why are you all that? Like you got all this clutter in your life. But I'm like, no, like that's their life.
Right.
And they've got to live it just like I've got to live my life. And just to be reminded that maybe something I see in somebody else is a reminder to check myself and to say, okay, am I going off a little bit or like, where do I need to adjust and kind of bring things back into focus instead of just saying like, okay, that person's crazy or they're losing it. It's like, maybe I'm crazy because they're like a reflection of me.
That's right.
And like he talked about that book and another one that I read, which was Peaks and Valleys. And I was like, that's a good book because it talks about like the flows that you go in life. Because sometimes when you're in the valley, if you don't understand what the importance of value in your life means, you can get so caught up that you just want to get back up to the peak. And then once you're up there, you get so emboldened that you forget where you were before. And just as quickly as you go up, you can come down.
Welcome back to the valley.
yeah. But it's like there's value in both, but just being able to understand what that means for yourself is it's good. But sometimes it's like you don't want to get caught up in just being too deep.
Right.
Like I don't like for myself, that's where I just kind of procrastinated a lot or just did a lot of note writing, which is like, I'm glad I did the note writing because I can go back now and like write like little short blogs and put it up on the website. Or I can take that and kind of retool it and say, okay, like somebody challenged me to write a book. And I was like, okay, well, I don't even know how I got here. And they're like, well, do that, like write that.
There you go.
So then I was like, okay, like I just sat down one day and just started like typing like mad mistakes and everything. Like I just forgot about all the grammar and stuff. But I was like, okay, let me highlight what I remember. So I was like, the thing that makes the most sense right now is going from 2013, the last year of college, to present day.
Right.
And like I was like, okay, this wasn't going right, this wasn't going right. But then I thought of making these changes to get here. And then after I got tired of writing for like 30 minutes or an hour or so, I just wrote down at the bottom 2019. I said, forget it, I'm done, I don't care, like I'm checking out. But then I was like, okay, I can go back now and kind of fill in the blanks. But that's a work in progress, not rushing it.
Have you ever heard the term that the universal is in the specific? So it's like, if the more specific that you tell your story, the more universal people will accept it. So it's like, as if you try to tell a story that's speaking to everybody, you're never going to hit it. But the more specific you are about your own circumstances, that actually communicates more of a universal message to your audience.
That makes sense.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's a little counterintuitive, but it sort of plays out a lot.
Well, I've never heard it said like that, but I've heard people say that in different ways, where they talk about, especially with social media, or like people that are on the entrepreneurial space or developing something, they talk about this having an avatar, or having like somebody that you speak to specifically. And for the longest time, I've just been like, okay, really anything that I put out, I'm really talking to myself, and like just reaching out and being able to talk to you. It's like, I enjoy being able to catch up and learning from you. And it's like, it's all benefiting me. Right. But I hope it benefits you, because I don't want to be selfish. But at the same time, I'm like, okay, if it benefits me, I start looking at like what like who I am, or what I am as a person, and kind of like what those qualities are. So I kind of built that semi avatar around that. And I was like, okay, so my avatar is someone that's like either highly educated or highly skilled, because those are people that I've worked with, where they may not have gone to like some people went to college, some people went to work right out of college. And I was like, regardless which track they took, there's value in that. And like, they're going to do their job regardless of being asked. But a lot of times, depending on their circumstance or the situations they find themselves in, or I find myself in, if I'm really talking to myself, it's like I start to devalue what I'm doing, because after a while, the person that I'm doing it for doesn't acknowledge it all the time. And I don't necessarily want acknowledgement, or I thought I didn't want acknowledgement, because whenever like you get kind of patted on the back, I'm like, okay, stop. Like, that's it. Like, one good attaboy is okay, but like every single time, it's like, it's a little weird. Like, you're like not, I don't like, what is it, stroking my own ego. But being able to value what you do, or have that be validated in a sense, it's like there's something good that comes out of that.
And that's why we love editors.
Yeah, I've got to figure out what I'm going to do with this week's episode, because I just got it back and it's got a lot of echo in it. I've got to go back and figure out if I can do anything with it through Audacity.
I was just going to say, you got to run it through that noise filter on Audacity.
That's one of the first things I saw. And I felt like a bonehead whenever I did like the first few recordings of this, because I kept trying to get the video file to convert to audio, because I wanted to put it on YouTube and then like take it from YouTube to like put on the audio platforms. And then I finally noticed that, whenever whenever you record this, there's a video file, there's an audio file, and then you can split the the audio files already set it up to where they split separately. So I was like, I've been sitting here trying to do something like paying for this service, paying for that service, and like I didn't need to pay for that.
Right.
But I was like, hey, it's part of the journey. Like
that
now,
is part of it. I know. Paying for your education.
Right.
That's absolutely.
And I was like, I've probably spent more on like investing in myself within the last 3 months than at one time than I ever have, like ever. And I say at one time because college was like the biggest investment. Yeah. Right. But when this comes to like, okay, I'm not having to do this for work, I'm not having to do this for school, but I'm choosing to do this. I was like, okay, this is a different mindset because other programs have come up before and I was just too nervous or too scared to take that step. And I was like, I don't know, but it's like, well, you trust them to do this, you trust them to do that. Right. Like, why are you not going to trust them to like level you up to the next thing? It's just, okay, you've got to put like $1,000 or more to the side. It's like, that's a lot. But I'm like, okay, if I'm not spending that money there, like where else am I spending it? And I just had a chance to go with my mom yesterday to pick up some furniture because we've been needing chairs for the house. And like, I've been trying to, like, we tried to do it last year, but nobody could kind of agree, like, if they wanted to pitch in or not. And I was like, okay, I'll leave it alone because I guess where I'm at, I wouldn't say I'm a unicorn, but I'm fortunate to where everybody else, they went different routes, but I took the engineering route, was able to kind of come out on top and like pay off loans and not having too much to start with, like put money to the side. And it's like everybody else is kind of going through different phases of their life. Like some people are starting families, managing families and that. So it's like funds aren't all there, but I was glad I was able to just go with my mom to the store and just kind of allow her to say, okay, let's just walk around. And I just kept trying to say, like, don't look at the prices. Like, don't look at the prices. I know they scare you. They used to scare me too, but it's like, we're not going to go foolishly, but let's look at chairs or tables that would be good for the house. Right. And it's like, okay, we looked at one that stood tall. It's I guess they call them like bar stools.
I was gonna say bar height, yes.
Yeah. And I was like, I like that one because I was like, most of us in the family were tall. So
I was gonna say you're 6 feet tall, yeah.
Yeah. So I was like, it'd be better for us to have something that accommodates us rather than like they're always accommodating or always taking care of other people. Like we have like family friends over, they may have kids and it's like, well, maybe the kids. And I was like, okay, really the kids don't need to be sitting at the table.
We're the ones who are using it 90%.
Right. And I was like, honestly, this is going to be for you and dad. But then like, if you guys decide to let kids jump on it, that's going to be on you.
That's
like,
on you.
Yeah. It's like, I'm just going to do my part. But the thing that was like, we were going with one, and then we switched, and we were going with another, and then we switched. But at the end of it, like she picked a set and it was like, okay, yes, we're going to do these 6 chairs. And they had a good deal at like Ashley Furniture's where it's like you buy one, get one. And it's like, man, that's awesome. So something that could have cost like $1,000 was maybe like $500.
Perfect.
And then they have to put on the extra fee for delivery and installation. And then like there was another hesitation there where it was like, maybe I was like, no, I'm not coming back up here to pick them up and then go back. It's like better that they deliver it, they install it. And I was like, that money, we're going to make it back. Like, I don't know how. Luckily I have a job that's in the works, like doing the background check and everything. But I was like, I'm driving Uber in my spare time. Like, I'm going to make the money back. Like the podcast just got put up on Apple, I think yesterday or this past weekend. So I was like, hey, more people have access to it. It's not making any money, but I'm figuring out how to drop ship. Going to make a t-shirt for the podcast. I'll send you one. So I'll need to get your shirt size just as a thank you to say like, thanks for being on the podcast. And I was just like, there's way too much information that I'm around that I'm not going to take advantage of it. And it's like all the fears that I've felt, like all that pain and the anxiety through this year. And really, when I think about it, maybe like over the last 6 years, it's like it's come up in like waves, but I hadn't noticed what it was. Like I didn't really have an understanding of what mental health was. And always being healthy physically, you're just like, oh, it's in my mind. It's in my mind. It's not a big deal. But it's like when it
just because something is in your mind does not mean it's not real. That is
exactly.
I think that's a real misconception that a lot of people have.
Right.
Well, and I'm wondering too, because you've been involved in so many entrepreneurial thinking settings.
Yeah.
You just demonstrated something that I think really is a very important lesson, which is with the delivery. Your time is worth more than most of the things most of the services, like going back and picking up the chairs. Your time is worth more than whatever they're going to charge you for that delivery.
Right.
So making that twist where you're like, your time, you cannot make more time. You can make more money to pay for things like that save you time. So right. I took note of that thinking has really set in with you. I'm curious too, you know, I see you, it seems like you're a little bit in an action phase, which is really great because I think this is a real trap. And I know that I've fallen into it too, is where you get into these environments, you're doing all the reading, you're doing all the listening, you're watching the videos, and the person is not getting that point of taking action on the ideas. They're not moving forward on those
right
things.
Right.
So tell us a little bit about where's that coming from, and how are you putting those action steps in place?
So I mean, for the action steps, it's been before I joined the Breathe University group. I hope I keep getting missed calls. I hope they'll leave a message. The action steps has come into like telling myself that I need to subscribe to the idea and really like accepting it, all starting with the morning routine of just saying like, okay, this is how I'm going to start my day, and I'm going to take the advice that's been given to me and like apply one thing. So if it's getting out of the house, and I think either back in August or July, maybe, when I first got connected with somebody to help me revamp my resume, I reached out, the group, it's called Breathe University. And every time you've got like a private Facebook group where you can go in, ask questions, share testimonies, share about what you do, where you're located. That way people can connect with you. And one of the people that I reached out to, or I was connected to, Regina Waller, she's known as the resume doctor. So she reached out to me.
Perfect.
And she was willing to help me. So she gave me her price up front. Again, I was scared, like, ooh, I don't want to spend the money, but I was like, no, like I'm spending it. Like I'm not going to do anything else with it. Right. It's better that she helps me. She's professional at it. This is what she does. Otherwise I'm going to keep struggling with something that I said I was going to update my resume for the last 2 years, which I haven't done. All I've done was maybe add to it, but over like the 3.5 year period where I stayed in one job site, I was essentially doing the same thing. Like it varied, the projects varied, but I didn't necessarily have another way of wording it. And even when she talked to me initially and just really took note of like my state, like how I looked, how I sounded, because we were on video, and she was like, yeah, we can do the resume thing later. Like, let's talk about what's going on with you, the person. I was like, I just told her what was going on. And from that, we just kind of talked through putting the plan together to like do the morning routine. And she shared with me some tips from like Jim Quick, and just having that, like the slow start, which is like, okay, you're going to apply. And my older brother, he'd shared with me, because I was getting ready to do Uber from what a friend suggested, but he was saying like, that's good, but before you do that, go ahead and dedicate a full month to where you're diligently applying for jobs. I know it sucks, like you're trying to just throw applications out there into the void, and it's like you never know what you're gonna get. Like you apply one place, you get maybe like 20 or 30 emails back, or you get nothing back. And like I did that for a bit, but then I remembered the thing about the podcasting, and like once I made up my mind to do it, I was like, I'm going to be intentional about recording or doing one thing that gets me closer to the goal, whether it's like research, informal, like I may slack off and watch a video or something, but I'm going to get out of the house and at least go to Panera, because it's easy. It's easy for me to like sit down with my laptop, like nobody will bug you or anything. Like I'll go and maybe grab a water or like give a tip or grab a bagel, just to where I'm like, I'm contributing to your service because I appreciate you letting me have the space.
Plus, it's good to be out sometimes with other people and just be in society, like a
Right,
reason to
right.
brush your hair and get out.
Right. And to be honest, like back in like from January through June, on and off, like I wasn't doing that. I wasn't leaving my apartment at all. Like I wasn't rolling out of bed. I was like, I might roll over this way or roll over that way, maybe pick up my laptop, see what's there. And it's like I'd say it got frightening, or I guess it got comfortable until like the comfort became bad. And I've spent a good amount of money on just ordering pizza or some junk food that would allow me to not leave the house, where I could just feel, oh, hey, something's here, let me sign for it. And then like just sit there. Sometimes I would eat it. Other times it's like, I just let it sit there. But I almost felt like I became, what is it? The character from the Lord of the Rings, the Smeagol, my precious. So like, I'd be sitting there just like, so like, just, I would order the pizza, or I would order like the junk, or like the person that I work out with that I just recorded before this is going to be hating me for this, but this will come out sometime.
This is the past. We're talking about
this is the past, but we got to talk about that to appreciate why we're here. Right. So it's like I would be ordering like the cookie pizza or the brownie thing, even though it was like soaked with grease. And after a while I was like, I might be disgusted with myself, but I'm like, I'm disgusted enough not to do that anymore. Like I've got to stop. Like, okay, I might not see the damage that it's doing, but it's going to hurt later. And like paying for a trainer and like going and then sometimes not going and like getting a call. It's like, hey, you going to come hang out? Okay, we go work out on Tuesday. And it's like, oh yeah, I'll see you tomorrow. And then like turn off my phone because I don't want anybody bothering me. Like get a call, like people are worried. They're like, are you okay? Like getting a call from work, this, that. And it's like, just, I don't know what it was, but it's like, I guess for the most part, just being in that mental state where I was just like stuck. I was like, I either don't want to do what I'm doing anymore, but I don't know how to walk away. And I guess hiding was the alternative, but not really, because all the while trying to recover, it's like I would take one step and then take 5 back, just like intentionally self-sabotage, because I was like, oh, like by the time it started to get destructive, it's like who's really gonna care? Like what does it matter? Like, oh, they'll be fine, like they'll find somebody else. Or oh, like I just had like nephews that were born a few years back. I think they may have turned 2 this year. They're twins. And then I've got a little niece. I was like, like they'll be all right. Their parents will take care of them. Like my parents, they'll be fine. Like, oh, maybe if I'm not here, maybe somebody else will get that money. But it's like, you never know like what dark areas your mind will go to until you just let it like go there.
Go wild, man.
And then sometimes I attempted to do counseling, but I wouldn't commit to it, because as soon as like we would have like a breakthrough, I would be like I don't want to go there. Like that's
uncomfortable.
Like, this is very uncomfortable. I mean, sometimes it's like you'd have like an hour session and it would take you a time to get there, but then it goes from like, okay, this is somebody friendly to this is a complete stranger. But then it's like, hey, you either talk to this person, or if you're not talking to anyone at all, you're just keeping it in. And when they encourage you on writing it on the piece of paper, and you're like, I don't want to deal with that. But like, thankfully, I've been able to connect with a friend of mine that we check in weekly, and it's kind of like talk through some things. And even after a while of being home, I'm like, oh, that's right. Like, this is probably the longest I've been home since college, or no, since leaving for college.
Wow.
And just kind of remembering, okay, there are things you cannot change. And then like, it's good that you went home, even if it was a year or 2 years later than you should have. Like, you could have just asked for a break from work. You could have just asked for that. But it's like, hey, hindsight's 2020. And I mean, I'm sure other friends would probably look at me or listen to this and just be like, I told you so. But I'm like, okay, like, I know you told me so. Like, somehow or another, like, what you told me didn't completely go out one year and out the other. But at some point, I wanted to be able to like embrace my own pain and kind of feel like I had the right to own something, instead of always being told, do this, do that, don't do this, don't do that. And it's like, all the while you just keep following rules. And it's like, okay, what am I going to do? Like, what am I going to do something of my own will, and not just constantly just being like, okay, all right, yep. And then you just built in that resentment over and over and over. And it's like, why are you always angry all the time? It's like, I'm not angry. Like, whenever the anger would come out, it's like it gets lashed out at the wrong person. And then I've got to tell myself I need to like redirect it, or either go run it out, or go like ask myself why I'm angry and then write it down, or ask myself why I'm trying to run from certain emotions and things of that sort, and just write it down, not for necessarily making a book out of it, but just for getting a better understanding of like who I am now, like who I was back then, and then like who I want to be.
Right.
And just making that very clear, like day to day, not setting too high of expectations on it, but just kind of saying, okay, we're here. Let's go from here to here, or even if we go down, it's okay. Just kind of just allow yourself to.
Yeah, we're not in that valley. We're
right.
We're still on the ascent.
Right.
Yeah. That's a hard journey. I think that there's a lot in that, and even you saying like, oh well, it was 2 years too long or whatever, but you're in a different place now, and it just it took you 2 years to understand that. I mean, that's in 5 years, that 2 years is going to seem like nothing, right?
Right. And that's exactly what the person that told me at the time, like whenever I had like my first panic, in a sense, it was just like I just felt like I just had one loss after another loss after another loss. And I was like, I can't get anything right. And this was just like from forgetting to sign up for something, or like not getting a message when I thought I should have gotten it. And he was like, oh, like, that's not that bad. I'm like 40 or 50 something, and I've already been through a divorce, had a company, lost a company. It's like, this is part of your life. And he kind of gave me 3 tips that I don't have them memorized, but I wrote them down and kind of saved them for later. And like now when I'm thinking about it, he just passed last year, 2 weeks after somebody else that I'd come to know had passed. And for me, like, that's not something I deal with too much. Like, I'm not a crier or anything like that. Or, I mean, maybe not in the moment, but it's like I think on the things, and maybe I just think on it differently, because where I come from, it seems like it's just the time of day. Like, every time you get news, it's like, oh, so-and-so passed, or so-and-so passed, and so-and-so. And I'm just like, like, man, like, I mean, for my parents or my folks, they know who it is, but for the most part, I I don't know a lot of like people or extended family, so I'm just like, it's just part of it. But then like thinking through things this year, and I'm like, well, there are a couple of things that led to me like being here, and kind of looking back at like how the passing of those two people kind of went back to back. I was like,
Yeah, it's a lot.
maybe it's a lot, but and I also thought like I handled it well because, well, the first one I wasn't really in the best state, and I almost didn't go to the funeral because I was just like, I was just kind of in this like indecisive like panic, like, okay, do I go, do I not go? And then finally I left, made the drive for like 2 hours, got there by the end of the ceremony as they were taking him away. And I greeted some of the people there that were all in the same group. And they, like, I was able to grab lunch with a few of the people, and one person was a mentor of his or a mentee of his. And we kind of talked about it, had some lighthearted conversation. We just kind of kept it moving, went our separate ways. And then 2 weeks later, having a coworker pass, like just literally like a freak accident where earlier in the week he had like, I think they said it was like an anxiety attack, but they misdiagnosed it.
Oh.
And I think what it was like a mini heart attack, and then it later became bigger. But seeing how different people responded to it at work, at first we got the news and it was just like shock. And one of my coworkers, he was in worse shape than I was. And since I was kind of like aware of myself, I was able to kind of like console him and say like, hey, let's go like away from here to where we can kind of just like walk it out. We can pray and we can just talk, like just think of like his memory or just like say a word. And that way, if you have to get something out, get it out, get it off your chest. Don't feel like you're being watched or you're being judged.
Right.
And
Performance.
yeah. And it's like we kind of went through that. And I think maybe somebody had said something to me. It may have been a safety guy. Like he was doing his job, and he's just like, "Hey, if you want to talk, let me know." And I was like, "Okay, yeah." And then he may have gotten in my face, like up close, like in my personal space, and he's like, "If you want to talk, let me know." And I was like, "Okay, like I got it. Like you're like I don't know what you're trying to do, but now you're kind of crossing the line. Like you went from being helpful to being like imposing." And I kind of brushed that off or whatnot. But yeah, it's just like a combination of different things, and taking all that into context of like when I chose to be active, like mentally, emotionally, and kind of taking things into stock and being like, okay, like this happened, that was maybe a negative, this happened, that was a positive, and kind of categorizing them kind of helps things to go along to know, okay, like what I'm doing in life matters, and I don't necessarily need to idealize somebody else or just like kind of give them a hand. It's like, let me recognize what I've done a little bit and just be okay with that. Like I've done well in some areas, other areas I didn't do well. Like you said earlier, for some reasons we're very self-critical, where we remember what we didn't do, or we remember like the things that nobody else can see. Like I graduated from a good school, but I remember, okay, I graduated with a 3.0 or 3.1 because I got 1, 2, or 3 C's, and I know specifically why I got them, who I got them from, and I still have like that person in my mind. But I'm like, okay, let that go. Like even whether it's like a nightmare about a random English class, that assignment that I haven't done, I'm like,
oh gosh,
let it go. Like nobody's coming after me right now.
I have
like
a degree.
Yeah, my degree, I'm sure it's in their system. If they say they don't have it, like just let it go. Like regardless, you got the information, you understood what you were supposed to understand to an extent. Like maybe later on in life you'll get more out of it, but just like appreciate this time for what it is.
Yeah.
And then as it gets different, just move with the cheese.
Yeah.
But I don't think I answered your question at all about how the action started.
Well, I like that you tied that in the book. Yeah. I think that you, because you're learning so much right now, I'm planting a seed as a professional podcaster. You should do a book group podcast and do some like reading, and then maybe discuss the book with some other people. I bet people really enjoy your take on that.
What do you mean?
So like if you could pick somebody and you both read the same book and then have a discussion about it, and it's sort of like a podcast version of a book club.
Oh, okay. Got
Like
you.
that.
I like that because
Yeah.
I've been doing this every morning. I started reading this in October,
Okay.
just after I launched the podcast, because I was like, I'll do the podcast once a week, but then I got the book last year and I didn't open it. And then finally I opened it on October 1st and I was like, oh,
Boom.
this book is literally what it says it is. It's daily
a
motivation.
daily affirmation.
Right. And it's like literally I started here on October 1st and it's like that. And I was like, I like short and sweet.
Yep.
That's all I need. And it gives me a way to like practice reading or practice speaking. Like I'm not intentionally trying to do a voiceover, but I'm like, I can read it and then like I'm reading it to myself a couple of times. I like read it over and over just to kind of get some of the stutters out. But then after a while I was like, let me just read it on the first go. But then once I read it, since I upload it immediately, I can go back and listen to it and just be like, oh, okay, that's what I read. And it's a motivation for myself again.
For yourself, right?
Yeah.
That's great.
But I like what you said with the, what'd you call it again?
There's a podcast book group.
Book group. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. Because what I did, I created like a Facebook group for this off of the Facebook page that I made. And I was like, I don't know 100% what I want to do with it, but I just want to understand how the tool works. But that's a great idea because one of the groups that I'm in, or like one of the subgroups, is that they've been doing a book review and we just finished it on the power of habit.
Okay.
And essentially we would read a chapter a week and then review it every Saturday. So I'd heard of the power of habit before, and it was from somebody that was in Toastmasters, and they had like the giddiness excitement about them. But I was almost sick of reading books because the mistakes that I made was that I gorged or overdid it with the information I was taking in, since it's audio, and I didn't space it out. So then I like went 12 books deep, and then they're all 12
books deep, implement nothing, on to the next one, boom, boom, boom. Yeah.
Because they're all implementation, because like, okay, you have Who Moved My Cheese. It's a short story, but when you take, like, if you really sit with it, you're like, okay, like what character am I? You can share it with somebody and then discuss like, who do you think I am? Or like, and then how can we move from here? And then I started listening to this book called The First 90 Days, which I'm going back to and listening to now because I'm going to be starting a new job in a new role. So I was like, it'd be helpful to actually implement it. Yeah. And then it'll be at a different level for something I haven't quite done before, but I'm up for the challenge. But I'm like, just take it in baby steps. And somebody told me this last year, and they were just like, at the beginning of the year, like this year was like last year, like I started all over the place, but it's like now you've kind of focused, and it's like going into 2019, what you need to be focused on is ABC 1, 2, 3.
Right.
And when I heard it, I was like, yeah. And then later I was like, that sounds too simple.
Well, but I was going to say, isn't that, it's so nice because then you know what you can say no to, because it's not that, it's not those things.
And specifically to your point, like in doing all the learning, like I went from launching the podcast to signing up for a coaching training
program
that's based around the DISC assessment for behavioral
cool.
personalities, because the person that showed it to us or to our group, that's the guy that passed away last year. So like since he passed, they basically took it and really did their best to flesh it out and like really do it in honor of him and to continue to train people so that this thing can live on. And it's been a game changer, because you can take it from the business perspective and apply it to the people you need to attract, but then you take it on like the family level to understand like the dynamics of your family. But now what ET has done is that he's written a book, which I keep thinking, where's the book at? I don't see it online, but I'm sure he'll put it out later. But the focus is not to go get another book for me, but it's to say, take the assessment that I've already been given. And to get back to your question from earlier, my goal for the month of November going into December 8th, when I'll be up in Michigan, is to take my assessment and read through it to better understand myself, and go back and watch the video that I got from Chris Daniel when he kind of walked me through it and say, okay, like, let me just listen to it just to understand it. And then if I get one or two notes, just write it down. Like, don't try to be too deep about it. Don't try to overanalyze it, because that's my tendency. Like, they have the DISC, and like initially he paired them up with animals because there was a cultural boundary whenever he was trying to explain it in, I think is in Miami or somewhere, where there was a big Latin culture. And what he ended up doing, he paired the D up with the gorilla to say like, this is somebody that would be a gorilla, or they would have that personality that's like dominating, like brash, driving. And then you have the flamingo, which is the I. They're very sociable. They never walk around alone. They're always in packs. They're always dressed to the T's. They look great. Like, their outfits are always on point.
Like a flamingo. Here we go. Yeah.
And then you have the S, which is a chameleon. Like, they're just easygoing. They blend into their surroundings. They don't want any problems. They're very good at pacing. Like, pacing is what they value, and they're always in a support role. But and that's where I come in, because when I first took the test, I was at 99% there. I was like, oh, okay. And like in the other one, in the gorilla, I was like maybe like a 15 or 25, to where it's like, I don't like to make the hard decisions. And I think with the flamingo, it was kind of maybe like in the 30s or 40s, but whenever I have to adapt, it goes up. And I was like, I think that's because I chose to be in Toastmasters. Like, I forced myself to communicate when I feel nervous. That way it's like, if you're in a group or if you're in a setting, like, be engaged in it. That's what someone had told me once. And then the last category, the C, he paired it with the what he called the turtle, which I was also at 99% in. But the turtle is supposed to be very methodical. Although they're slow, they're very calculating. Oh, you muted yourself for a second.
Slow and steady wins the race, though. Yeah.
Right. Because the funny thing they keep saying this year is that, like, as slow as a turtle is, like, you almost never see turtle roadkill. You see all the other animals, but the turtle's never killed in the road. Like, somehow or another, they get across the street through heavy traffic.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah,
that's cool. Very good.
So I'm gonna go learn more about that next month. So in the meantime, that's my main focus, to kind of put time towards that. And now, really, with the podcast, I think this will be the last recording. Maybe this one and one this weekend, but really just tapering it off with the holidays and things, making sure I go back and look at the release schedule going into the end of this year, into next year. Just make sure if anything needs to be moved around, move it around, and then just work with the, I guess, I don't know if he be called an audio engineer, or the person that's helping me put out the podcast, just working out with him for what's best.
Let's call him the mastermind. I think
the mastermind. Yeah,
that's
yeah.
a good
He's
mastermind.
yeah.
That would be an
He's very good
appreciated
at what he
title.
does. Yeah,
that's great. That's
so
good.
the mastermind, work with him, and yeah, the other thing, yeah, just doing that, and real estate, looking into. I believe I purchased a course for wholesaling.
Oh wow.
And I'm going to sit down and give that maybe like 30 minutes to an hour, just go through the course and kind of use it to learn what I need to learn through the end of the year, because the other big investment that I made was into a course at the end of January of next year, like the 25th and 26th. So I was like, well, since I'm in this group and this person offered this course for a whole lot less, let me just get the information and then even talk with one of my coworkers that's done wholesaling, and he walked me through his process basically of like how he got started and why he's so comfortable of like being able to work, but at the same time just being like, okay, just because I'm not working doesn't mean I'm hurting for money. Because like literally when we talked, he was like, I was like, this is kind of weird. You're in the middle of the day, you're not at work. And he's like, yesterday was actually my last day. And I was like, oh, congrats.
Oh, good for you.
Yeah. And then he was telling me that he's already, he did it the right way. He lined up somewhere else to go before just leaving, where I was just like, I just left or forced myself to leave. But either way, we're here now.
Yeah, we're here now.
Yeah.
Okay.
But that's the main focus, doing the self-assessing review of myself to just get a better understanding of where I'm going, who I am, so that this goes better. Because the better I know myself, the better I can interact with other people. And then going the real estate route, because I've heard of it, read The Rich Dad, Poor Dad, didn't do anything with it when it was first introduced to me my freshman year of 2008. Found out about it again in 2014, but now again 5 years later, it's like, okay, now I'm doing something for real. Yeah,
that's great. That's good.
But that main thing is like, I want to do that to understand it, but to generate income, just to say, okay, bring some money to the table.
Thing,
yeah like money's got to be there at the end of the day.
It's not a business unless there's money. That's a good lesson to have.
Right. So then I'll eventually get to it, if not by the end of this year. Just going through the beginning phases of understanding how to set up a company, like an LLC, to be able to purchase the company, the property with, or just deal in that sense, and knowing
the
how
behind the scenes things.
Yeah. Because sometimes it's like, when it starts getting into the nitty gritty, it's like I don't know if I want to. It's like it was fun at first, but like just working with people that make the nitty gritty manageable, it makes it understandable. And also just being focused on saying, okay, I'm going to focus on this one thing for this 1 hour today. I'm not like, I don't have kids or pets or anyone else to really take care of. Yeah. So it's like, if I'm still being given the time to have off like this, while I'm not being pressed to say, okay, you need to fly here and be here today. That may have been what the phone call was about earlier, but
oh boy. Yeah, you better go.
Yeah, I'll check it. But I'm saying like, until that time, like I'm going to maximize the time that I have now, because like we said before, you don't get it back. And I know I didn't spend the time at the beginning of the year to the best of my ability, but that's in the past, and I'm not trying to make that up, but I'm going to maximize what I've got.
Well, you've seen what you don't want. That's the other thing.
And there's the other one.
All right. I think that's a sign. I really enjoyed talking with you today.
Likewise. Thank you so much. Oh, well, yes. I'll call. But I was going to say, if I could ask you maybe 2 questions.
Sure.
Okay. So present day, who do you say you are?
My name is Catherine O'Brien. I am a podcast producer. I am a child of God, and I'm a resident of Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Happy
Awesome.
dog owner, happy wife, happy person.
I love it. And what is it that, where can people find you for your podcast and your future endeavors?
Oh, well, my business is called Branch Out Programs, branchoutprograms.com. And I'd love to see people on Twitter and Instagram at Hello Catherine O. I'm sure you'll tag me in everything that you do, so people can find me there. And yeah, I love podcasting. I love the podcasting world. There's a lot of exciting things happening in podcasting. So that is my future endeavor is all about podcasting.
Awesome. I just wanted to make sure I got that in there.
Yeah, I'm here to plug.
Cool. Thank you,
All right.
Catherine.
All right. Thank you so much. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.